on the education front, training is education. So if in certain states you go take a class, it gets college credit. So it depends whether you have a fire academy or fire college or whatever it may be. So for me, it's anything that builds on knowledge is education. And I will not, or I try to refuse to knock anyone that's in any pursuit of becoming better. A class, a formal education, even the motive, because some people would say, hey, they're doing this just so they can become that. I'm good. Whatever puts people in a position or a mindset where they're going to become better versions of themselves, more educated, better trained. For me, I just don't see a loss. Does it take up your time and prohibit you from doing other things? Sure, short term. But if I don't go take this class and do this training, it's not going to allow me to become proficient at it. That's not going to allow me to teach people. That's not going to be allowed me to maybe even develop classes of my own. Same thing applies to education. It just seems like that investment has to be made, but long term it pays out. So I'm not really. I get lost with the concept of if you're pursuing a formal education or any type of training, you should have any type of feedback except for positive feedback.
Well, I got a question for you. Speaking about formal education, if an individual did not already have formal education before they came into the fire service, so let's just say they didn't go right out of high school into college and obtain some degree, they entered into the fire service. Is there a time that's better to get your formal education than another time? I mean, are you better to get it as a firefighter, as an officer? What's your thoughts on that? Or what's anybody's thoughts?
I'll tell you.
Time before you make a battalion chief.
Say that again.
Anytime before you make a battalion chief, you're way too busy for it then. I can tell you right now.
Well, I think it depends too, Hatch, don't you think? Because that would be me. I came in with nothing. And definitely as a firefighter and as a company officer during that time frame, you're allotted a lot more time to concentrate on that stuff. And I would highly, highly recommend it. Then when you get into some of the upper stuff, it's almost like reading, for me, this is for me, my personal experience. It's like reading a book. The timing has to be right. So if I'm working at a master's level when I'm a firefighter, it's going to be a while before those things actually, I know a lot of it is applicable, but before you truly apply and have the ability to engage on all those things. So I say you start right away. More than starting right away, what I would say is, what is your plan? Don't just chase somebody else's coattail. It may be, look, my goal is before I obtain company officer, I want to get an associate's degree. Before I obtain my battalion chief, I want to get a bachelor's degree. And before I obtain, a higher level, I'm going to get whatever it is. I just think that you should work at your pace with your situation and your goals. And that is not all encompassing.
But our young, newer firefighters coming in like that, with that kind of mindset, we're like, okay, I'm going to make company officer and then I'm going to make battalion chief. And here's the steps that I need to take. I mean, are they really coming in that focused?
We need to have mentorship programs, whether it's in recruit class or training or anything else. Is the paradigm in the fire service now, if you want a tomorrow in the fire service, education, it would be wise. If we look and we date back when EMS came into the fire service, it was the same thing. A lot of people said, no way, that's not what I signed up for. So I think that would come with mentorship from our end to say, look, I highly advise that you start looking at this. I think, and we've spoken about this in the past, I think that departments should start looking at incorporating formal education into their training process. So if you are in with a local tech college, let's say, and you're already running through a recruit process, there's college credits that could be obtained there. And we can get very innovative about getting this done if in fact, and this is the only part that would be thrown out there, and I would love to hear back from some of the listeners, their thoughts. If in fact we can agree that the future of the fire service, current and future of the fire service, formal education is important. Simple question. Is it important? Then the next question will be important to what? important to the future, to your progression within the fire service? I say in most cases, the answer to that is yes. For your future in the fire service, it would be extremely beneficial to have some type of formal education. So we should start preparing them right coming in.
I kind of like the thoughts of at least that firefighter prior to company officer level, really kind of focusing on, if you don't have it, focusing on that 2-year fire science, fire management, whatever that particular thing may be. I think that's probably a pretty good spot to start. So
I don't necessarily agree wholeheartedly with that angle. I
Which
think
one?
Well,
Shocker.
what you said, Pavel, was that you might not be able to use those things that you're learning at that level. So it might not be advantageous to have that education at that point. Is that correct?
Well, no, sort of. So what I was getting at is, yes, it's always going to be beneficial. But for instance, as a firefighter, if you can do it, I'm saying to do it. But let's suppose I have a graduate degree. Of course, it's going to be beneficial. But in my pursuit of education, if I'm actually pursuing different levels of education, I would line it up to what my career goals and good timing, because although they would be beneficial, there's only a certain amount of information that you're going to retain when you don't use it. So for me, I found it it's been more applicable to go, it kind of matches where I'm at. Like reading a book prematurely that you can't retain all that information. And then, yes, you can retain some of it or it's applicable. But if you read it at that right timing, it's just more advantageous. But I am no way, shape, or saying don't pursue all the way the highest education.
No, that's not what I was trying to imply. I was just trying to zero in on what you were saying. And I kind of think that education has to be more of when you're ready.
Sure.
And the other piece of that is that I don't know that I value the actual education as much as the education process. I think the process of learning to learn is just as important as any bit of information that you receive. So when you talk about being able to apply the information, that is part of it. But that process of learning how to learn and how to think, and so that you can do that when you're outside of an established classroom, so that you become that person that's constantly learning. But I don't know that people are ready for it when they first come into the fire service. I think some of them probably are coming to the fire service to get away from that, to avoid having to have a degree or a formal education past high school. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
I want to stress, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think that pursuing whatever it is that you're going to learn, if you don't pursue education as you move forward in life, you're basically saying that you're fully formed.
Yeah, you're done.
There's nothing else that I can learn that will make me better. So whether you're learning in church, whether you're learning, whatever.
Volunteering your time, whatever the case
exactly.
may be. I think you bring up a good point, Bill, with the education piece. It's not so much about, I think there's some benefits to studying, in the appropriate band, so to speak. But I think just the process of educating yourself and going through that is a tremendous benefit. I agree 100% with what you're saying on that. I think the when you're ready kind of thing is a little bit difficult. That I don't know if I may have butchered that statement up you made right there, because I don't know if anybody's ever quite ready, or maybe they're all. I think I just was like, I got to finish this. Like I got. No,
we all need pushing. But if you force, I've got a son right now in college. I thought seriously about whether or not he needed to go to school right now. Is he in a position where he's going to benefit from him, or does it benefit from it, or does it hurt him? Is he ready? Is his mind right for what he's about to do? But Hatch, you started all this with say it again. I want to make sure that we're kind of jumping off from where we thought we were.
Talking about that higher education was self-absorbed.
Okay.
Well, and this is an isolated instance. I don't think all of it is, but I think what he was discussing was people who let their job duties suffer so that they can do their schoolwork. He sees it as self-absorbed. It's probably a better way of explaining what his situation was.
I would agree with him if that's all he does or she does. If that's the only thing you're doing while you're at work, then yeah, that's self-absorbed. That's you're spending your time at work.
Such a huge decision maker. I mean, promotions are made off of whether or not you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. It's such a big thing, just as Pavel's talking about, that the departments are moving towards as far as going with a higher education. People who are already involved and got involved in the fire service and had experience in training classes and whatever. If they want to go further, they have to have some of that time to dedicate to their higher education. And so they're taking the time while they're at work doing it, not time away from their families when they're at home. But is it worth the job suffering? Is the higher education, are we getting enough return on investment from the higher education that it's worth not having that same super smart individual use some of his experience and using some of his skills to teach those skills to people instead?
Well, that's the point of education, right? The point of education is to get learned and then pass it on to somebody else. So if you're only doing it and getting that learning in to get promoted and you have no intention of passing it on to someone else, then that is self-absorbed and it's greedy and anything else that you want to label.
Yeah, but everybody is not just looking for the promotions for the money. It's also so they can influence more people. So there's still that passing on that can happen, that it has to happen by you getting promoted. But if that is the step, that is the pathway that you got to go through by having a degree.
No. What I'm saying is, let's say you go to 5 classes and you learn 5 things. Whether you get promoted or not, you have an obligation to pass those 5 things along. In my mind. If I'm a what are you smiling about?
Nothing, I'm just laughing.
That was a smile?
Yeah, it was a smile. I have a dimple, it shows.
I mean, if you're getting learning, then you have an obligation to pass it on to the people that you're supervising or that you're working with or whatever. I mean, that's
in a perfect world,
right?
That's true, but it's not a perfect world.
That's what we're doing right here, right? Isn't that what this whole podcast is basically doing?
It is, but it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to do it. I mean,
I just like talking to you guys, and getting you up.
That's why we were doing it.
Well, you're right. You're right, and it is our passion for it, to pass it along and to educate people. I 100% agree, but that's ideal. But I don't think every situation is ideal, and that's more or less what he was talking about.
Pavel, are we going to have to raise hands? Pavel, I see you trying to jump in there, so go.
I was just going to say that I get the self-absorbed component. Some people are going to do that no matter what. This is 100% to benefit me. I am not going to pass this information along. It still makes them a better individual. So for me, you can't go wrong. Maximizing, and I hate putting it around formal education, any knowledge that you gain, anytime you are learning, which should be all the time. The self-absorbed individual, yes, this is 100% for me. I am not going to share it. I want to make sure I have this so I can be better than the next guy, so I can have a step above, whatever the case may be, that individual still improved. So I think it's wrong. I think that all information should be shared and you should always be mentoring and helping people grow. But at the same rate, for me, you can't fail because that individual is still part of our organization and they have benefited from that. So I understand that part. Does the organization pay, like Hatch is saying, because now they're taking the time at work to pursue this? They're taking their time at work when they go do any training that they do. So for me, it's all knowledge. The unfortunate part would be when it doesn't get shared, or when more of the organization can't benefit from it. But will the organization benefit from the guy that takes a 24-hour officer course versus a degree, none of which are shared with anybody else? Yeah, the potential for the department to benefit from that is a lot less, but they will. That make sense? No?
So
I mean, I
go ahead.
well, you said officer class, and I think, sure, you come out of that with a whatever certification, but you are passing things along, whether or not you're getting the present, the PowerPoint presentation out and giving it to other people, you're passing things along. So I don't know. I think that Hatch, what you're presenting almost seems like an all or nothing. Either you're self-absorbed, and I'm not saying that's your view. I'm saying that's kind of.
I just brought you what the guy said. I didn't say this is how I felt.
You brought a great topic.
It's.
I think you're all overeducated, you morons.
I'm going to agree with that.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, Hat, so I will say this: because as people listen to it, it goes to the battle of that we've all heard through the years of. When you're a firefighter, you should be concentrating on learning the fire tactics and all that stuff. I'm one of the biggest supporters of that. I want to learn everything, want to be out there on the grind, but some of these skills can aid in decision-making, situational awareness. There's still a lot to be learned. So when I hate it that the battle always has to turn into formal education versus training. Who needs formal education? It's all about training and experience. I hate that battle because I don't think that I don't think they should be separated. I don't think it should be judged that way. I think it should be simple.
All right, wait. Before you go any further, if you had to pick one, training, formal education, or experience, which would you choose?
Ooh.
That is so unfair.
Yeah.
No, I go
So this was going to be easy? Did you think being friends with me was going to be easy?
Let's go back to the taco and the
experience.
I agree, experience, but a good experience. You can have 25 years of service and have no experience.
I say it all the time when people say, "Well, I've been doing this for 40 years." I'm like, "Well, I've been playing basketball for quite a while, and I still suck at it." So it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at it.
But if you can only have one.
Right.
I mean, you can read about fighting fire all you want in a book. That's not going to get it done, So I'd go with the experience. But again,
what was yours?
Experience.
Oh, I'd say experience. If you only had to pick one, but again, I think the experience piece is like kind of what Hatch said. It's got to be good experience. I mean, yeah, you can learn from bad experiences too, but if I had to pick just one, I'd go experience.
Well, look at it this way too. So we're picking between experience. Name them again, Hatch.
Training, higher education, and experience.
Okay.
It's only three. I can't believe you actually have to write it down.
He's looking them up right quick.
I do, but remember, I'm taking notes so I can, do all that hashtag stuff.
Got to do definitions later.
So the great thing is that we all have the ability to get two of those. One of them, sometimes you just don't have the ability to get. Now, I know it could be thrown out there to go, well, not necessarily. There's financial.
And one of them is hard to quantify.
Yes, very. But I would
That's why we use the other two all the time.
And it's within reach of most. Experience, I would love to gain more experience. If I had to say, hey, where's your weakness? Experience. Whatever.
Yeah, but experience in what? I mean, you talk about experience in fighting fires, dragging hose, or are you talking about experience managing people, situations?
Put it in any one of those categories. If we had to, between all four of us here, our work experiences and what we've been involved with, we can go back and forth to where all of us are at a deficit because we are limited in experience. We want it, but it may be an organizational thing. It may be where you're at in your career. I haven't dragged as much hose as you guys have. There's no way.
But do we undervalue the experience because we can't quantify it?
Yes, I believe we do. I don't know
that we undervalue it. Well,
yeah.
I'm still relishing that he said I believe we do. So hang on a second. Let me bask in this for a second. All right, you can go on.
Why would you say that?
Somebody agreed with it.
Yeah, I know exactly. I agree with it. I don't have that happen very often.
No, I mean, are you talking about in a formal process or? how are you saying that it's undervalued? Because if you ask a firefighter on the truck, they're going to say, no, I don't undervalue experience. If you ask somebody who's promoting within the department, who's responsible for promoting individuals, they value it at a different level, I would assume.
So let's say we're laying out resumes. We're laying out resumes for a position. How do you quantify experience?
Well, that is difficult. I agree.
Unfortunately, it comes down to a number. The number and the organization usually equals the respect you're going to get for that. So if you look and you say, hey, I worked for such and such department for 35 years, we're going to go, okay, most of us, I would think almost immediately you go, oh, okay, that's a super busy department. That's not a busy department and that long in that department. So, but you're right. It's not something that's objective. It's just something that we're going to go, wow, 35 years. Just like you said, let's suppose that a resume is getting put out and you're looking at somebody that has 30 years of experience. The 30 years of experience itself, it kind of doesn't work by itself. You're immediately going to tie it into the organizations and any other information leading to it. So if I was to say, hey, I spent 30 years at New York City Fire Department and retired as a battalion chief, you're going to take all those together, my position, my department, and the years of service and go, wow, that's how I'm coming up with the equation. Then I could say the same exact thing, put a different organization and a different rank, and you'll come with a different outcome on what you think that is. So, and you're still taking your best guess at it.
Okay, but so let me turn it around then. Same three choices: higher education, training, and experience. Which one of those three is the easiest to recognize a deficiency in?
Training.
I don't know, man. You could probably see that in formal education might be one that you could see the deficiency in too.
I'm not talking about the certificates that you've got and the letters after your name or anything like that.
Whether they can apply.
Talking about exactly which one.
I think they're all equal.
You think? I think experience. I think experience all the way. It doesn't take long to It doesn't take long to figure out that somebody does not know what they're doing.
It doesn't take long to tell the people that have master's degree that can't change kitty litter.
You can't.
But that's not a product of their master's degree. That's
sure,
not a
if they have a master's degree, some people would have a master's degree and it looks great on paper. The resumes look great, and you wouldn't trust them to do anything. We all know people like this.
They're also not going to have the experience because they're not.
But you can't quantify the experience. People don't put experience on the resumes other than how long they've worked somewhere.
I'm not talking exclusively in resume in this situation. I'm talking about actual looking at a person.
So
you're saying the easiest way to tell a failure is by them failing at their experience.
I think that's the easiest way to see deficiencies in any of those three. I think that's the one that will pop up the quickest.
So I say
as soon as you put a nozzle in their hand, you're gonna see whether or not they know what they're doing.
But I've seen a lot of experienced people with the nozzle in their hand that couldn't really execute, doing it time and time again for some very busy departments because they've never.
That's his point.
Well, for me, that would come down to training. The training is going to tell itself. The experience, you could do something wrong for years.
I think the training might have been perfect. It's the individual that didn't receive it well.
But experience, so you're saying experience is going to make everything better? You can keep doing things wrong, but experience is going to...
I forgot the original question.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. That's not where this was going.
Oh.
Which of the three, if it's so easy to spot formal education on a resume and it's quantifiable, if it's so easy to see it and it's so hard to quantify experience, if we turn it around, how easy is it to spot a deficiency in one of those? And
I think it's going to depend on the setting. I think you could show it easily in either one, depending on the setting. If it's the fire ground, yeah.
That's
you
why I said it was
probably
equal.
could show it up. But if it's sitting behind the desk, and it's going to show up.
And to Bell's point, I mean, there's going to be some things that you could. I mean, a skills assessment is really the leveling ground, to see if people can actually do what they have training in, education in, and experience in. But there are going to be some things that some people are never going to experience that others will. So, I mean, you can't always use that. So it would be training and education that would come in. But if they can't do it, they're equally irrelevant if they can't apply them.
There's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is facts. Wisdom is the application of them.
Difference between certified and qualified. Bill smiles a lot more when he's in person.
I wanted to follow up with something smooth.
What'd you say, Hatch?
I said you smile a lot more when you're in person.
Told you this is going to be intimidating.
I know. He's like watching himself, purposely not making himself smile.
That's not true.
Well, I still think, going back to the original thing, that for anybody out there starting mid career, I think you're cheating yourself if you're not trying to gain as much experience, as much training, and as much education as possible. So there could be financial restraints. Talking about education, there could be limitations in education, period. Training is the same thing. There may be physical limitations on certain trainings that you may want to do. And experience is one of those things that even with that, step outside of your bubble, go to your other departments, go to conferences. You can get experience outside of the bubble that you're in. So for me, I look at all three of those and I say, if you are not actively pursuing increasing your experience, your training, and your education, you're cheating yourself. And forget about promotions and forget about the fact that, hey, if I have a degree, it ain't going to help me on a fire ground. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with you, self-growth, and how much better you can be to the fire service if these three things were present.
That's what I was going to say. You're not only cheating yourself, you're cheating those around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like Bill said, you hope that you are becoming learned, and then you are passing that on. Period.
Well, and Mabel, I kind of am going to pick at a little bit of what you said, but I don't think that I don't think that education is limited like that, because just like you said with experience, you can go somewhere else and get that experience, go to a conference or something like that. I'm saying the same thing with education. Pick up a book. Go talk to somebody who's done it. Spend some time reaching out, trying to get that education. Just because you don't have the money to go necessarily to a school or something like that, that shouldn't limit you.
So you bring up an excellent point, and I'd like to hit on this for those who are seeking out and feel that they may have some limitations or some roadblocks. Number one, I hit the formal education component. I found myself early on, because when I got into the fire service, just like we were talking about earlier, I actually came in because it's like, great, something that I can do, that I can use all my life skills, but I don't have to go to college for, I'm in. And then I saw that the game was changing and it was something that would behoove me to pursue. So I did. And then the next obstacle was, well, I need to learn how to learn, because it didn't come easy to me. And there was also the financial restraints. So there's a lot of scholarships out there available. And I, through my education, probably have gotten over $15,000 worth of scholarships out there that are at your fingertips if you search for them. So don't let anything get in your way if that's your goal, your mission. On the other side of it, and Bill, this fantastic point that you bring up, I was listening to a podcast that Hatch actually turned me on to. We're both certified psychologists because of listening to this podcast. And they had a person on there, and the person was just unbelievably intelligent and well-educated in the world of psychology and anthropology. And the person asked, do you have a formal education in this? No. Why didn't you pursue a formal education? And his response to it, and I wish I had the exact words, but he was basically saying, Well, I don't need to. I have my formal education in other routes, and I have the liberty to study this material any way, shape, or form that I want. By all accounts, the guy could have had a doctorate in the material by what he was talking about. But it doesn't mean that you have to be, hey, I need to end up with a certificate at the end of this that says I got that education. You're 100% right. You could do self-study yourself on any subject matter, and that is still education.
And I'd say people that are listening to us right now are reaching out in that way, hopefully.
Yeah. Looking for
Both
answers.
of them.
Looking for what?
Looking for answers. Yeah. Looking for,
Right.
different tactics and ideas on how to do management and leadership and, burn things down.
And if there's anything that I can help with, or any of us can help with, send us an email. I'd be more than happy to turn people in a direction of some of the scholarships and stuff that I applied for that was successful getting. So if there's something that we can help with, that's what we're here for. I mean, we're doing technically what we're talking about, which is we've all got a lot of different experiences, and we're giving everybody the ability to tap into those experiences. And for me, I definitely needed financial help to get through my education, and it was not anything easy. I had to work very hard at it. So I always say for every 1 hour that one person spent studying material, I had to do it for 3. But reach out to us if there's anything that we can do to aid in your effort to be better. But I still will go back to, doesn't matter whether it's training, the education, or the experiences, there's avenues out there for us to be able to get it.
So, question to everybody. What is the formal education that you've gotten to this point?
Hot plate.
All right,
Going
then.
first.
Shane?
Yeah, Shane.
Go ahead, Shane. Yes, Shane.
It's downhill from here.
No.
Yeah.
What's the question again, Bill? I'm having a tough time putting my formal education to use here.
We've been talking about formal education. So in the spirit of being fair to the listeners, what are the levels of formal education that we've all got?
I have my master's degree. I have an MBA.
And when did you get that?
I completed it in 2018.
So that's something that you've actively been working on.
Yeah. And my formal education started prior to the fire service and then stopped. And it was the reason, just like Pavel said, was kind of why I got in the fire service, because I was a little bit over the formal education piece. And I went to EMT school at that time, and that was my last bit of formal education for probably the next 15 years. And then I realized I needed to kind of get plugged back in. And then I went back and finished my associate's degree in fire science. And then from there, I eventually finished my bachelor's degree in organizational leadership, and then finished up with my MBA.
Hatch? Abel?
I came into the fire service with a high school diploma and really had no intention of any formalized education. I did have to, the paramedic program that I chose to go through was at a college. So that's where it started. I got my associates in fire science, my bachelor's in fire department administration, and I'm currently in the process of completing my master's degree in emergency management.
Hatch?
I came in the fire service as a high school graduate, always had the intention to get a college degree. Just a personal goal, not necessarily an occupational thing. Right now I have an associate's and should have my bachelor's done by April. Bill?
Yeah, so I got a college degree in 92 and then didn't do anything formal education until the last few years when I got into the EFO program at the National Fire Academy. So out of the 4 of us, I am easily the underachiever.
What's your degree in, Bill?
Well, that's what I was about to highlight. So not only is it formal education, I have a Bachelor of Science, or a Bachelor of Arts, excuse me. Bachelor of Arts in film. which is just about as useless as it could be.
That is
Kind of doing
absolutely
that right
disagreeable.
You're applying
I
it.
disagree with that.
So, what I would say about it, and I want to stress this again, not that it needs stressing, but the process of learning to learn was what was important at that time in my life. So there was, even though there's been a 30-year drought almost of formal education, there was still education that was happening along that time.
Hey, Bill, I got a
Health
question
education.
for you.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, there was a 30-year drought. With that being said, do you feel that some of, whether it's the education that you got or like you got your EFO later, but going back to the discussion that I was having in the beginning about if you can apply some of that learning at certain times, do you think it would have been more helpful if that would have been later where you could have retained more of it? Or it really doesn't matter at that point, you were done and whatever you had to do available.
The process of learning was there once that was built. As far as what I learned in school about film and all that, I don't think application was an issue.
I agree with you on the process of learning. Totally agree with that. Because my education surrounds what I do, and that's on the formal side. Informally, I put countless hours into things that are not formal. If I had my choice, most of it would be probably towards human behavior and psychology and that type of thing. I don't need a formalized education. We do a lot of study in it. I think that the process of learning without any question is there, but because all of my formalized education has been around things that are going to help me with the fire service, I have found them very, very, very useful. It doesn't make me better than the next guy. It just makes me a better version of myself. So I understand the learning process and definitely don't want to go into route, but it's going to be mentioned out there to say, well, you got this education and you're a battalion chief and this guy's a battalion chief and this gal's a battalion chief and they're 10 times better than you. And what that, it doesn't mean anything. Absolutely it does. It means I'm a better me. I am better for having it and I'm able to apply it specifically because my studies are around the fire service than before I had it. So there are certain things that are, you're just going through the process. But to me, there's no question that it has helped me to become a better version of myself and in turn has helped out the organizations that I'm involved with and the people that I come in contact with because I'm able to pass that along.
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that.
So some departments require degrees for promotion internally to positions. Let's say arbitrarily, let's say battalion chief, right? Some departments require a degree. Do they care what the degree is in? Do you get more credit for having?
Is no.
So do you get more credit for having a degree in something industry related, or is it exactly the same if you have a degree in something industry related and not industry related?
I can't answer to that because I don't know how the choice was made, but I can say that my degree in film counts as a degree. It probably wasn't weighted as heavily as somebody who has a degree in fire science or an MBA or something like that. But it is a degree, and I will stand on the fact that it teaches you the process of learning.
But in the application process for a position, let's say your position, it didn't say industry related. It just said degree. Correct?
Degree. Yeah.
It kind of destroys a little bit of the validity on the higher education to be able to pass on type of argument in that if it's not something that has to be industry related.
Well,
I get it. You're a long-time learner, but you can be a long-time learner and be a reader and not have a degree. I mean, there's a lot of other factors to that.
Well, and I'm not going to argue that there's stuff from the film degree that's you could pass on in the fire service. I'm not going to make that argument. However, I would say that there is a little bit of Yeah. We've already done that episode.
I know.
But I think that you would get into an area where you'd have to argue what is applicable. Is a degree in psychology applicable in the fire service?
Oh, absolutely.
So, but it's not fire service.
You
So
could all have a minor in psychology.
So that kind of segues into my maybe last question for the group. If you could snap your fingers and have a degree in something that you're not, whatever it is, but somebody could confer upon you, not just the degree, but the knowledge as well. It's not a shortcut question, but that you would have all of the knowledge that was required to get a degree in blank. What would that be?
Easy.
What would it be, Pavel?
Anthropology.
Anthropology. You like their clothes?
It fits.
They fit.
Oshkosh Pigosh.
I didn't see that coming.
Just kidding. Anthropology. Go ahead.
No, that's just it.
Why?
It still relates to what we do. It's a chase between the whole psychology and anthropology, but basically just there's independent behaviors that people have, and then there's the group behavior. And for me, the group behavior, whether it's the cultures or whatever it is, it's just always been extremely fascinating. And I think if you can wrap your mind around that, especially me being a very team-based individual, and I see that a lot of strength comes out of a team. An individual can perform a lot more being part of a team than independent at times. So anyway, that subject and the complexity of it and all that, without question, that's the route that I would want to go.
Jane?
I'm going to butcher up this degree, but I would probably go along the lines of the organizational psychology or industrial organizational psychology, just because I think it gets into not only the people psychology, but it gets into more of the group dynamics. And I've always been very, very intrigued with those group dynamics, cultural dynamics. So I would pick that, organizational psychology.
Hatch?
Probably a law degree.
Yeah.
That's what I'd pick for Bill.
See, and I wouldn't pick that for me. I would be more on the, I can't remember what they call it. It's kind of in line with what Abel was saying, but it's the behavioral economics, the study of why people make the decisions they make when.
That is economics.
Well, no. There's a whole offshoot of that, because economics operates on the idea that people will make the decisions that are financially or in whatever way you're measuring better for them. But what they found out is that people don't make those decisions. And why don't they make those decisions? Why do they make decisions that go against personal gain? If we live in a capitalist society, why isn't everyone driven by that? So that's really the interesting thing about that is that most of us wanted to figure out why people do what they're doing, which is a weird thing. Hatch is just gonna.
Why the law degree, Hatch? No. Yeah, why?
It's always something that's interested me.
I will admit, that's like my second choice, but not because I'd want to
Imagine.
I just want the knowledge.
Could you imagine them two lawyers?
Yes,
Holy
that'd be
shit.
awesome. Who the hell is the judge?
I like the
I'd want them representing me, though. I can tell you that.
Yes.
kind of the outwitting kind of way that you propose in arguments and stuff like that, and preparing arguments for law arguments. I like those.
Hey, I have a question before.
Let's do it.
Well, I actually plan.
Let's retire and go on vacation.
Well, there's that, but
I do plan on pursuing it when I'm done, when I'm retired. I would like to pursue just for, again, self-purpose. But I do have a question. What do you spend a majority of your time studying, researching, reading? So when you're looking at your book selection, you go through your books or your internet searches. What is it that you occupy your time trying to learn, not stuff that. Oh, say that again.
Leadership.
Same with me. It's leadership.
Hatch.
Leadership.
Right. Same here.
It's kind of pervasive.
Look
All
that
right.
up.
Well, is that it?
For that one.
Well,
All right. Well, listen. Let's make sure that we close this out. Our listeners might not know it, but we had to do this one via Zoom, so that's why our audio quality has regressed a little bit. But we will be back in person just as soon as we can.
Yeah. Too bad we didn't get hacked and have something weird happen. I was kind of
Oh,
looking
yeah.
forward.
Little Zoom bomb.
Yeah.
Combustible is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Combustible to make sure you don't miss out on an episode. Follow us on Facebook so we know how many of you listeners there are out there. And you can check us out online at combustiblethepodcast.com. As always, we would like to thank the Golden Dogs and True North Records for letting us use their song Saints at the Gates for our theme music. You can find the Golden Dogs music on any streaming platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.